Listen to them.
Okay, sounds good. Dr. Yu, they're going to say fidelidad. Remember I told you guys that they're going to do one word?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to say fidelidad.
Okay, that's fine.
And
I would like to call this meeting to order. Today is a regular board meeting. Today is Tuesday, October the 17th, 2000, no, I already said that. Mr. Jaramillo, can you take roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. President Flores.
Here.
Vice President Frank.
here.
Mr. Castro.
Here.
Ms. Dahlman.
Here.
And I am here. Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Cameron. He is here from Centennial High School. Now, we're doing something a little bit different this evening. We have invited students from J. Paul Taylor to show us how we do our pledge in English, in Spanish, and also do the pledge to the state of New Mexico. And can you introduce yourself, please, ma'am? Okay, so we will now stand for the pledge. The students will show us. Go ahead. Let's give them a round of applause.
Teacher, can we say hi to the students before they leave?
Thank you so much for showing us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Good job.
I've got a job for you in the future. All right. Excellent job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias por todo. Okay? Thank you.
Can you charge them? Good job. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good job. So when in doubt, we let the children lead the way. Okay? Thank you so much. That was actually emotional. We've done the pledge. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the August 15, 2017 regular board meeting, the September 5th, 2017 special meeting work session, the September 5th, 2017 closed executive order, session, I'm sorry.
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Jaramillo and Ms. Dahlman, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the minutes are approved. We're going to move on to the agenda. A request was made to remove items 5E4, approval of school year 2017-18 memorandum of understanding with the town of Mesilla for security and traffic control at Mesilla Elementary School and Zia Middle School. And 5E5, discussion of district wellness goals for school year 2017-18 from the agenda. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Frank and Mr. Castro. So then, all in favor of that, removing those items? Aye. So that is passed. I will now, let's see, there's a second item here, but I think I've already done it.
Yes, ma'am, I apologize.
So then I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Okay, Mr. Jaramillo, Mr. Castro, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and so that the agenda passes. We move on to consent agenda items. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 5C1, approval of student out-of-state travel, 5D1, approval of budget adjustments, and 5D2, approval of September vendor payments.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Frank and Ms. Dahlman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes. We move on to the report. The board met in closed executive session on October 17th, 2017, started at 5:03 and it ended at 6:21, to discuss limited personnel matters as permitted under Section 10:15(1)(h)(2), specifically for the superintendent to A, update the board regarding the investigations of certified and classified employees by the superintendent, and B, to inform the board of specific employee movements as permitted under Section -1015(1)(h)(2) of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, to discuss communications with legal counsel regarding pending or threatened litigation, specifically DPH number 1718-03, as permitted under Section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, to discuss collective bargaining strategies preliminary to bargaining negotiations as permitted under Section 10-15-1H5 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, and to discuss a purchase that exceeds $2,500 in the amount that can only be made from the source as permitted under Section 10-15-1H6 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. And so that was our closed executive session. We now move on to recognitions, and Dr. Yui?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, and to the members of our audience this evening, good evening and welcome. And if the board will allow, I'd like to call forward 3 individuals along with their principal. So at this time, if Officer Mr. Ruben Benavides would come forward, Officer Mr. Michael Pondo, and Officer Mr. Julian Gomez, along with Mr. Shepakam, the principal at Oñate High School. So, Madam President, members of the board, and to the members of our audience, we had just opened school as the school year began, and in each of our high schools, we have security officers in addition to school resource officers from the Las Cruces Police Department. On one of our opening days of school, we had an individual enter a school building who should not have been in that building. The individual was not a student or an employee of the school. Immediately upon noticing on cameras and surveillance of the hallway the individual was in the school, he was immediately contacted by security and asked, "Why are you here and what is your purpose?" Upon further investigation, it was determined that this individual even had a weapon on his body. These officers disarmed the individual, they held the individual in custody, and he was taken into police custody. The children of Oñate are safe. The principal is here to testify today that these officers went above and beyond the call of duty. This is what we expect of all employees every day. And I always say in a school building, there's only 2 people to harm, and that's children and teachers. Ms. Irma will say classified employees as well. And so from my office, from my executive cabinet team, and on behalf of all of the district employees, I would like to just give a congratulations to these officers for going above and beyond the call of duty. You are heroes. You are my hero today, and I thank you so much.
Senora,
Dr. Yu.
Madam President,
Dr. Yu, can we shake their hand?
Here at the legal counsel and Roberto.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. No problem. I just want to say thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, officers, two more members of the executive team. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Shepakon. Madam President, moving along, the next individual I'd like to call forward. I don't allow staff to use the last name of students. It's for their own safety and their own protection. So I'm going to ask for the student Kobe to come forward tonight. And for his own protection, I'm not going to use his last name. Kobe, if you would come forward, I'd like to explain to the audience your heroic efforts. So a week ago, Kobe is a student at our Crossroads program school, and there was a custodian or a representative from the physical plant working on a window in the school. So the folks who work in construction and who work with windows know that windows can be like razors. The glass gets extremely sharp. He had his arm in the window, something went wrong, and the window ended up slicing his arm. It sliced 4 tendons in the arm. Before anyone could get to this young man, anyone could get to our individual, this young man approached. He took off his own jacket. He wrapped up the wound. He kept the injured person there on the floor. We had nursing staff come to assist. We then contacted emergency services where he was transported to the hospital where surgery was actually needed for the employee. And all of that occurred because of the heroism of this young man here who knew what to do instantly, who knew how to protect this individual, who kept him calm, who reassured him, and who saved him from losing more blood than he already did. So on behalf of my executive cabinet, on behalf of the employees of the school district, I just want you to know I'm very proud of you. You're the type of student that we want here in the district. And so you have done something that even I haven't done. You're very heroic today. So thank you very much.
Yes.
No.
And now, Madam President, members of the board, and to members of our audience, it is my honor to introduce to you Miss Betsy Geary. She is the Las Cruces Public Schools Foundation Executive Director, and she is here this evening to talk about some of the wonderful things our school foundation does for teachers, and I think she's even going to present some awards. And so, Ms. Geary, on behalf of the Executive Cabinet and on behalf of my team, first of all, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the support that you give our schools as our foundation. I'll give one shout out. The foundation is a 501c foundation, which means that any money you donate is tax deductible, and we're always soliciting and collecting donations. And so as she's giving out money tonight, I'm taking it in. So thank you. And Ms. Geary, please proceed.
Good evening. Madam President, board members, Superintendent Ewing, and ladies and gentlemen of the audience. Yes, I'm Betsy Geary. And this evening we are here to recognize and congratulate an extremely talented group of educators and present their awarded teacher grants. The mission of the foundation is to partner with the school district to support and enhance the educational experience of students, to promote innovation in the classroom, to increase community involvement in education, and to pursue and recognize excellence. On the screen is a list of our hardworking directors who are all volunteers. At this time, I'd like to introduce those directors who are present this evening. Most of them are already standing, but those who are not, please stand when I call your name, please. And remain standing until everyone has been introduced. Audience, please hold your applause until all the directors are introduced. We have Wida Ade, Jennifer Terrazas, Jean De La Pena, Chris Woods, and Brenda Van Dyke. Are there any other board members here I missed? No. Thank you, Foundation board members, for your hard work and dedication to the students and staff of the Las Cruces Public Schools. The major activities of this year include our teacher grants, our student scholarships, the Celebration of Excellence Dinner, Comcast Cares, and our Request for Funds or Sponsorship program. Fluid Review is our online system that allows teachers, students, and the education community to apply for or request funds for a project that benefits our students or a scholarship or a teacher grant. This year, we again offered two types of grants. Educators could apply for an individual grant for a maximum of $1,000 or a group grant for a maximum of $5,000. As always, our goal is to encourage innovative projects and increase student achievement in the classroom. This year, we are awarding $31,004 in grants that will benefit an estimated 2,500 students. This is a 9% increase in the number of students reached throughout the teacher grants from last year. We were and are motivated to seek outside support to increase our teacher grant funds. And we are waiting to hear from a grant that we applied for that will add an additional $5,000 to this total. At this time, I would like to recognize and thank our signature sponsor who helped us meet our goals and supported our teacher grant program. Ricardo Gonzalez, Director of New Mexico External Affairs for El Paso Electric Company, who awarded the foundation a $5,000 grant. Thank you for supporting the educators and students at the Las Cruces Public Schools through your support is greatly appreciated. Now I'm going to briefly go over the funded grants. You will find these educators answered our call for innovative and exciting educational programs to be funded. They range from kinder through high school grades. After I've gone through all the awarded grants, we will take a group picture. Educators, when I call the title of your grant, please come forward and remain standing in the center while I speak on your grant. Then, when I've finished with your grant, please step to the side. My helpers will help you. And remain there until we are finished, and so we will come forward for a group photo. Audience, again, please hold your applause until I have gone through all of the grants. And Jennifer Terrazas, our secretary, and Wida Ade will hand out our certificates and our grants. Bringing STEM to Life, Beyond the Hour of Code from Monte Vista Elementary, submitted by Cecilia Lujan Pincombe, Brenda Sorensen, Fabiola Ruiz, Ruby Smith, and Priscilla Medina. This grant will be used for a K-5 introduction to robotics for 560 students as a follow-up to last year's project of learning to code and offering a family night for students to teach their parents how to code. They are awarded $4,998. Thank you. Now, off to the side. Where Diversity Grows, the Greenhouse Project from Mayfield High School, submitted by Alexis Munoz, Veronica Vizcarra, and Felicia Rios. The grant funds will be used to maintain the greenhouse at the school to continue teaching the low incidence and regular education students the importance of a healthy lifestyle and environmental science. Awarded $1,458. Guided reading for Hillrise Kindergarten from Hillrise Elementary, submitted by Yvette Springler, Gina Gutierrez, Kayleen Womack, Jill Gill, and Veronica Lerma. The grant funds will be used to purchase leveled readers for all kindergarten teachers and the K-2 interventionists to share. These readers will be used to implement guided reading instruction in the classroom. Awarded $3,325. Math Magicians from Sunrise Elementary, submitted by Liz Archuleta. The funding will be used to purchase research-based math manipulatives to help struggling learners through an aggressive intervention plan. Awarded $846. Photographic Adventure from Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy, submitted by Jacob Botter, Larry Moore, Chris Blaze, Ann Kuhn, Anita Martos, and Amanda Mata. The grant funding will be used to purchase equipment to implement a digital photography program, allowing the students to look inward and express outward, learning to speak about their ideas and passions. Awarded $2,782. Reality Works, babies, from Centennial High, submitted by Sandra Lowry, Yvonne Palmer, Carly Salmon, and Megan Romig. There you go. The grant funding will be used to purchase Reality Works simulator babies to implement a hands-on curriculum for child development with the goal to make a positive long-term impact on students that will lead to a greater understanding of the commitment and responsibility that comes with parenthood and will ultimately result in a decrease in teen pregnancy. Awarded $4,778. The Santa Fe trip from Oñate High School, submitted by Sarah Kiesling, Stephanie Vance, and Katrina Madrano. The grant funds will be used by the Life Skills class to plan, coordinate, and implement a class trip to Santa Fe. They will use cross-curricular skills to develop their itinerary, budget, research, and report on their trip. Students will get a more meaningful, hands-on idea of how our state government works and the role they play in it, as well as how to navigate new environments and coping with their disabilities in the community. Awarded $4,878. Young Engineers from Desert Hills Elementary, submitted by Jessica Reyes Islava. The grant funds will be used to purchase STEM resources to allow the students to become engaged in writing, read aloud, science, engineering, and mathematics activities. These STEM hands-on manipulatives will invite children to build, explore, and engineer. Awarded $948. Okay. except that wasn't. Multisensory structured language approach, Tier 2 response to intervention from the instruction department. Submitted by Carla Davila Rosales, Linda Aguirre, Celeste Swap, Carla Barella, and Sylvia Alariz. The grant funds will be used to purchase materials and supplies to implement a systemic, structured, and sequential multisensory program in literacy for students who are struggling to meet grade level expectations. The plan comprises a team of 20 committed first and second grade teachers across the district and is coordinated by the team from the instruction department. Awarded $4,997. Ukulele, a new level of musicianship from MacArthur Elementary, submitted by Rose Verlinde. This project is to assist students in learning a string instrument in the 3rd grade that will challenge them not only musically, but mentally. The ukuleles will be used in the after-school program for grades K2 and 3-5 for all classes throughout the school year. Awarded $994. And last but not least, the Trailblazer Library from Arrowhead Park Early College High School, submitted by Kearney Zimmerman, Reyes Duran, Jennifer Nix, Carol Owensby, Lynette DeFreitas, Jamie Baker, and Emily Gonzalez. The grant funding will be used to support the Arrowhead Park project of opening and equipping their own library that they started last year. And they're awarded $1,000. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2017-18 teacher grant projects from some very innovative and creative educators. At this time, I'd like to ask the LCPS Foundation Secretary Jennifer Terrasas, the Allocations Committee Chair Brenda Van Dyke, the LCPS Board of Education President Maria Flores, Superintendent Ewing, and the LCPS Board of Education Foundation Liaison Terry Dahlman to please come forward for the photo. Thank you. Yes, if we can get them all. Lots of group grants tonight.
How are you? It's nice to see you. I hear you.
Congratulations. Thank you for doing that for the kids this year.
Great. Yeah, keep up the great work. It's a great relationship that you have here. Yeah, it's good stuff. Keep going.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is our big chance to hide now.
Exactly right.
In fact, if you check the score, Maria's not here, so. Oh.
5 more minutes, probably.
Oh, okay. Keep me posted if anything happens. We have to be sneaky about it.
I know.
I was teaching a course in like it was 1993 at Delaware County Community College. It was during the Phillies that they were in the World Series that year playing Toronto, and it was tough, you know. I kept, you know, I was teaching maybe from 6 to 8, or I don't remember the hours, but it definitely overlapped.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just started. That team was, most Philly fans will tell you that's like their favorite team. It had a lot of real characters on it, you know, sort of gritty players. Like John Kruk was on that team, and Darren Dalton, Lenny Dykstra, you know, I think Kurt Schilling was on that team.
Oh, yeah, we're well hidden.
In fact, we had a guy, Jim Eisenreich, who had Tourette's syndrome. And he was a real good hitter. And he was under control. He took medication. You know. It was a great story. I mean, he had a pretty good career. Pete Incaviglia, remember him? He was on that team. But all those guys, they were all overweight, you know. Hard living.
My favorite guy would be Valenzuela.
Yeah, Fernando Valenzuela.
He was a big guy.
He was a dominant pitcher. Kind of.
You know what I was, yeah.
Okay. Where are we?
Public input.
And I haven't received a single sheet.
I don't think we have any.
Okay.
Where's Tina?
Should I say the whole statement or
Let's
should
see.
I?
Ms. Gonzalez, do we have any public input? No. So-
Okay, then we will just move on. We'll wait until everything settles down. We're going to go ahead and move on with the superintendent's report as there is no public input.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, and to the members of our audience, we're moving along in the agenda. We're under the superintendent's report for announcements. So first, I would like to recognize, I see Chris Bolzano in the audience. He is our lobbyist who works on behalf of the school system in Santa Fe. So Chris, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for lobbying for the school system, and we appreciate your work very much. And next is Debbie Moore here tonight. Is Debbie here? Did she come with you? No, okay, so I'll give a shout out to Debbie Moore, the president and CEO of the Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce, who gives daily support to the school district, so we appreciate her very much as well. Next, Madam President and members of the board, this next announcement is not something that I want to make on behalf of myself or the executive cabinet, but I have learned I can't compete with grandchildren. And so tonight will be the last board meeting with our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Crystal Valdez. She has decided to retire. She has grandchildren in another state. And as much as I've tried to convince her to stay, I can't compete with that grandbaby. So first of all, let me say to Ms. Valdez, thank you so much for the work you've done. In my 30 years in this business, I haven't seen someone run numbers the way you can and talk to me with the level of confidence. And you are always so kind every time we go through any conversation with money. Even if you say no, I still know that you are on top of the ball game. So on behalf and from me, I want you to know how much we appreciate you. I don't think our staff realizes the extent that she goes to protect money in the district, to protect the resources of the district. And from my chair, she is the person who says no. I'll say yes to anyone. But I always end the sentence with, you have to go to Crystal. If Crystal says yes, I'll do this. And we've learned that we really do have to protect our resources, and she has been phenomenal. So the entire executive cabinet and I would like to, if we may, Madam President, just salute you. We would like to say thank you for all that you've done. And we would like for you to have an opportunity, if the board so allows, to come and shake all the board members' hands since this is your last meeting. So,
Better listen.
You're not easy to replace.
We will miss you, definitely.
Would you like to say a few words?
Can't we vote on this and say no?
Can we bring the
I
child here?
oppose this.
Yeah.
It's-
Grandchildren can be moved.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, please.
What?
She's going to say a few words.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Rounds, members of the Las Cruces Public School community, it has been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now, Madam President, members of the board, and specifically, this information is for our employees to know. We're going to follow the same procedure we would follow in any opening within the district. So we have a three-tiered process of how we go about replacing an individual. So we first ask Crystal to review her job description to ensure that it meets the duties she is performing daily. Dr. Miguel Serrano, our Chief Human Resource Officer, will oversee the process to hire a new Chief Officer of Finance. We will engage individuals from the finance department. They will actually be part of Tier 1 interviewing process. We'll also include with those employees our student advisor. I've already asked Cameron if he would join, and anyone applying for the position, I have to tell you, he's a tough interviewer. We will then also engage, is Miss Irma still here? Miss Irma from CSEC, and we'll engage. Miss Irma's here, okay. Miss Irma or her representative, and we will engage Dr. Bruce Hartman and Mary Par Sanchez from NEA Las Cruces. So there's full representation. We'll go from that round to the second round. Those individuals will produce to the executive cabinet the top 3, 4, or 5 candidates, whatever they decide. Those individuals will then be interviewed by the executive cabinet, and we will have intense conversations about whom we wish to work with in the future and what the skill set is of that individual. And then finally, because this is an individual who is entrusted with the money, and because this is an individual who reports directly to me, the final interview will be with me, and then I will make that public announcement to all employees on the same time. And the only thing we'll do is notify the board in executive session before we make that announcement. And so the position is open. Dr. Serrano is going to post the position, and we certainly welcome applicants. And so, Crystal, again, thank you. Thank you. The next item under announcements is I'm also sorry to announce that our current principal / program director or program leader at the Crossroads program, Mr. Joe Mestres, is retiring after many years in the district. Erlinda, do we know his number? Long time. Long time. And so he had a conversation with Dr. Sanchez and myself. And so we will do exactly the same thing. We will go to the faculty at Crossroads. I see our officer from Crossroads here, Officer Tim. We will go to the Crossroads faculty. We will invite the faculty to be a part of that process. They will be on the first level of interview. We will also invite some students from the Crossroads program to sit in on those interviews. We will certainly have representatives from our curriculum and instruction, teaching and learning department there, representatives from our special education, special student services. And those team of individuals will again send the top 3, 4, 5, whatever that number is, of candidates to the executive cabinet. We will interview that individual through the executive cabinet, and the executive cabinet and I will make a final determination. I do want to announce tonight that that building has been under the program leadership of our chief academic officer, who's done a beautiful job. If you go over there, there are academic support and programs in every classroom with every teacher. And so now, if we do what's good stewards, I think, of students and of the money and of the district and of our philosophy, we will now move the program to be under the direct supervision of Dr. Roberto Lozano, and we will begin infusing a social justice component to that school and that program. So the new individual will be named the executive director of the Crossroads program. Dr. Lozano will directly oversee that program. He's one of our former award-winning principals that I stole out of a school, and his staff will work in tandem with Ms. Martinez so that we keep that curricular focus in the building. We still call that a program that is not a school. Students will then leave that program and return to their schools. So we want to make sure that we ensure that we do everything we can for students while they are there. So Dr. Lozano, there's another item added to your list of responsibilities, and there is no raise for that item, so more work. Next, Madam President and members of the board, I'd like to introduce tonight Ms. Robin Quelan. Robin is standing here, standing behind us. Robin, would you stand? Robin is the new administrative assistant in my office suite. She will be replacing my wonderful Maria that the deputy superintendent stole from me, and so payback is coming. But Ms. Wagner is going to the deputy superintendent's office, and Robin is coming to support me. And my first day meeting her, all I said was, "You have no idea what you've signed up for." I come and go at all hours of the day and night. I text and email at all hours of the day and night when my mind is working. And her main function is to keep up with my calendar and keep me organized and do anything and everything that folks who come into our office ask. And so again, to the public, my office is open. We're here to assist folks. And Robin will be your first point of contact, and she will ensure that she gets you to the correct person and that we give you the services that you need. And so Robin, welcome to the office. We're glad to have you. And Maria, I'll still be coming to the annex, and I'm not bringing Gabe on the days that I do. And so, Madam President and members of the board, those are some recent personnel, either openings or appointments that we wanted to make the board aware of this evening. Next, I'll move to the budget update. Just to continue to inform the board and to inform the public, we are continuing to work with our counterparts at the Public Education Department. Crystal, in one of her last works with us, has given me information on the latest of the legislation that was passed by our legislature, asking for an additional $16 per child in the SEG. That $16 per child, we think, equates to about $700,000 here. We're still waiting for that check to arrive. We've made a couple of contacts with our public education department officials, and instead of getting a check, I continue to get bills from them. So now we've engaged legal counsel. Legal counsel is working with us. We're all reading that same statute to see if we're interpreting it correctly, and I will keep the board and the public informed. Those dollars are critical to the infrastructure of the district, and to give you an example, teachers, they don't make this, but they cost the district $75,000 per year with salary and benefits. And so $700,000 would give us 10 additional teachers. And there's not a school in the district that wouldn't say, "I want more teachers in my building." There's not a school in the district that wouldn't say, "I need more custodians in my building." There's not a school in the district that wouldn't say, "I need more educational assistants." So when those funds come, we will use them, and we will use them for employees. And I will give the board a full report as that occurs. Moving along, I'm going to invite our friends from NEA Las Cruces and CSEC, and Dr. Hartman and Ms. Par-Sanchez, if you don't mind, I'm going to call on Ms. Irma first, who I think is going to go home after her speech. Ms. Irma, do you have any words for us tonight? Okay. As you're walking up, I'll just say, I hope you don't mind, but she's not feeling so well, and so she called and said, "I'm coming anyway." And I'm reminded of the story. I went to Gabe the other day, and I said, "Where are those forms we fill out when we're not feeling well and take a sick day?" And he said, "A sick day? We don't have those around here." So I ended up working even though I didn't want to, because he made me feel guilty. So now you're here, so you have upped the ante. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Ewing. First of all, I want to also thank Crystal for all the work that she did in our collective bargaining negotiations. She was always very kind, very gracious, and whatever requests we made of her, a financial request, she got it to us in a timely manner in order for us to review them and to do our negotiations. Thank you very much, Crystal. You're very much appreciated, and God bless you, and happy retirement. Next, I'd like to also say I'm very proud of our security guards from Oñate High School. their professionalism, because of their quick wits, and they did what they did, what was expected of them, and they went over and beyond. Our security guards are not armed. They don't even have mace. They don't have a baton. All they have is themselves to be able to do what is needed for our schools to be safe. I have talked to Dr. Ewing on various occasions, and I would like to see more guards being hired for our schools, and possibly there be a shared guards between schools. So, of course, I'm going to put in my wish list when this money comes in for security guards, because I think they are very much needed in throughout the district.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, again, I am very proud of our security guards because they did a fabulous job on that day and every day to keep our schools safe and sound for our faculty and staff, and first and foremost, our students. Next, I'd like to say that oh my gosh, I'm having a moment. Hold on a minute. In addition to Kobe being such a wonderful hero and savior, I like to point out also that at the time that he was there tending to the physical plant carpenter that got injured, that we had two people on campus that it was fortunate that they were on campus, because actually they already were off their contract time. And one of those people was a nurse from Health Services. I'm sorry, I do not know her name, but we need to give a credit to her as well, because she, through her medical expertise, tended to Mr. Louis Figueroa. In addition to that, right there on the spot was Mr. Tim Sikorsky, the campus security at Crossroads. It was just very coincidental that these two employees were still at Crossroads, because they were already off the clock. It just so happens that Tim was waiting for a parent to pick up a student, correct? Kobe. And also our our nurse was there for some other reasons to stay behind. And it was very fortunate that they were there at the time that this unfortunate accident happened. So, I'd like to recognize the nurse. I wish I knew her name, and also Tim, because they were right there tending to Mr. Louis Figueroa, the PPD carpenter that was there. And I did express my concern to Mr. Stout, and he assured me that Mr. Figueroa is an expert in his in field, and right away, I as Mr. Stout knows me, I started talking about safety and support, and for our carpenters and any other physical plant employee. And right away, Mr. Stout did order some, what do you call them, Mr. Stout? Sleeves? To add to our employees to be safe on the job. So I want to thank Mr. Stout for that, always listening to me, and probably when he sees my name on his cell now, he says, "Oh no, what Irma is calling." But again, it's only because I care so much about our employees and their safety, and again, thank you, Mr. Stout, for that. That's all I have for tonight, and again. Thank you for allowing me to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, and we'll recognize those. We'll do it in the next month. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at Ms. Gonzalez, if we'll get those employees. And if an injured employee wishes to come, we're certainly welcome to have him here.
I think he is doing well. Is that correct, Mr. Stout?
So we'll, Ms. Irma, we'll ask him first permission before we
Absolutely.
release any information. But if he wants to
Absolutely.
come, we're happy to have him.
And I know Tim is going to be deployed to Puerto Rico, so maybe, I don't know how soon.
Supposed to be next week. They've changed my date from last week to next week, so the federal government, we'll see how that goes.
Sure, so that's the second or the third change, is that
This
right?
is the third change.
Third change, yes, so.
That's the federal government.
Yes, and so, and just for the audience's sake,
Yeah.
we fully support him going to Puerto Rico. We certainly support him in working with the individuals there who need assistance. And we are having legal counsel research now, just for the audience to know, whether we are allowed to pay you, according to New Mexico law, legal counsel will have to help me here. I think we're entitled to pay you up to 15 days while you're away. If that is the case, I certainly will authorize that payment and bring that before the board for approval, because you are doing a service to individuals who are in dire need of assistance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ewing, because next year we do look at our whole agreement, and I think Tim had brought an idea on providing a specific leave for services that such as Tim provides.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, go home and rest.
Well, Doc, I need to talk to Bruce later.
Oh, okay. So, Bruce, now, when she calls, we answer on the first ring. You know that, right? That's the rule.
I don't have any.
See, Ms. Par Sanchez, no words of wisdom tonight? Okay, so, Madam President, members of the board, that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you for allowing me to share information with you.
Thank you, Dr. Ewing. We now move on to the student advisory report.
Well, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, thank you. I'm happy to be here tonight. First off, I want to recognize Ms. Valdez. She's always been a big help to us, at least in my time with the Student Advisory Council. I've learned personally so much about the way the state law works and how the legislature works in conjunction with the funds that we receive here and the state equalization guarantee. And Ms. Valdez actually came into one of our meetings last semester and spoke for almost an hour and basically laid out everything that the students of our district needed to know regarding the budget. So I want to thank her for that, and we're going to miss you. Thank you. Moving on to something that Ms. Dahlman mentioned I think it was in your board member report, the changes to the next generation science standards. After you, was it you, Senora Flores? After you mentioned that, I went home and researched it, and I was astounded by these changes and the fact that at first I was like, this is fake news. There's no way that this could be authentic. And I told Max, who's a member of the Student Advisory Council, remind me to put that on the agenda for next month's meeting. So we put the next generation science standards on our agenda a couple hours ago, and we had an excellent discussion. Would you agree, Mrs. Martinez?
I was floored. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Excellent discussions, not just about the science standards, other topics, but basically what the reaction of the students in that meeting, they were appalled. They couldn't believe that people who are tasked with providing a quality education to students in New Mexico would move to corrupt the standards and create a worldview that is false. One of the things I contributed to the discussion a couple hours ago was part of the reasons people reach for political power is so they can input their 2 cents and their personal views in the way things are regulated. That's politics, that's the way it works. When you try and inject your own personal views to alter things that are matters of fact, it makes no sense, and there's no place for that at any level. And quite frankly, I think that the people at the Public Education Department who made these changes should be ashamed of themselves for doing so, because if you look at it, we're already ranking at the bottom in nearly every educational category, every metric that you can come up with. And not presenting factual evidence to our students and giving them the opportunity to create their own opinions and take with that what they want from it is corrupting our education at every level. And just the idea that someone would want to do this. It might not be significant changes now, but the idea that these people have it in them to change these standards based on what they think in contrast to scientific fact is appalling, and like I said, they should be ashamed of themselves. I hope someone picked that up in the media, because I don't want it to go away. They can't get away with doing that. And I had the discussion with our students. It's not a Democratic thing. It's not a Republican thing. It's a common sense thing. And I think I've said that here before regarding issues with the state. Surprise, surprise. It's a common sense thing, and common sense isn't being practiced up north, and I think it's time for it to be practiced. That's all I have to say about that. I could talk about that forever, but I think Mr. Fox would yell at me back there. So I want to move on to something that Ms. Valdespino touched on, and that is the arming of our security guards pursuant to the board policy that authorized the superintendent to allow or to authorize our security guards to carry weapons on campus. And to this date, correct me if I'm wrong, only Mr. Gregory, Todd Gregory, has been authorized to carry a weapon. It was addressed in our Student Advisory Council meeting, and after healthy discussion, about 45 minutes worth of discussion on the topic, the students decided that it might be very beneficial to have our security guards at our middle and high school campuses to carry guns. Now, there is the notion that it would create a militaristic environment, and it might not be comfortable for some of our students, and we certainly recognize that. But it's a reality that we live in, ladies and gentlemen, and if it could push more towards being proactive rather than reactive in a situation, that would certainly be something we're interested in as a Student Advisory Council. So before we get started on calling for anything and to arm more security guards, we would like to invite Mr. Gregory, and I don't know if he stepped out, I'll talk to him after the meeting. We would like to invite him to our next Student Advisory Council meeting on November 14th and gain some more information on whether or not it would be beneficial in his point of view for security guards to carry guns on campus, and possibly create a student interest survey to gauge students' comfort level at middle schools and high schools regarding guns on campus. But in the student's perspective, if it's something that is going to protect our students and our staff on our campuses and allow them to react quicker and to take care of the situation, it's something that we need to support. But obviously we want to look into it further and gather all the details before we make a final ruling on that as a council. And then moving on to some announcements, I kind of got picked on a little bit because I always make announcements about what's going on at Centennial. And our kids, our council, who has become much more vocal this year, I want you guys to meet them. You'll love them and listen to some of our discussions. It's amazing. Said, hey, why don't you announce what's going on at Arrowhead and Mayfield and things like that. So I will say Arrowhead's Spirit Week, their homecoming week, is next week. They're really excited about that, and their dance is on Friday night, and they're going to have a Spirit Week that coincides with, I know we don't do the Tough Enough to Wear Pink, but they're going to do their own thing organized by their National Honor Society over there. So they're really excited about that. And then Mayfield is getting geared up for Rivalry Week against Cruces High. I heard that they were going to get an old car from some lot and bash it at some event. I don't know. That's what they do over there. And Centennial, I need to tread lightly here. I'm sorry. Centennial and Oñate are both very excited for the first installment of the Oregon Mountain Rivalry to take place on November 2nd at Aggie Memorial Stadium. We're excited to have a big crowd. Hopefully we can have tremendous crowds both the 2nd and the 3rd. They're both at 7 o'clock. The weather's not going to be bad, and quite frankly, people, you need to come out and support your kids from all 4 high schools, not just the 2 this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, yes, and we're all looking forward to it. With that, Madam President, if there are no further questions, that concludes my report.
And Cameron, I just want to say, I don't know if you heard, but the Secretary of Education did not show up to the hearing yesterday. I don't know why. There was no explanation. There were over 300 people there, scientists from all our laboratories in New Mexico, teachers, even people of faith were there saying that the changes were not acceptable. So there was a lot of, and certainly I sent my little 2 cents in as well, and Dr. Ewing and I did that.
Definitely, and we did review your letter, Dr. Ewing, that you sent, and we saw it on the LCPS website, and we're in obviously full support on that. And I don't even think it's a partisan issue here. Like I said, it's just common sense, and common sense is being detracted from up at the Public Education Department, and it needs to be addressed in public.
Thank you for that. And do anyone else want to have any comments, questions or comments?
Just have one, Madam President.
Yes.
I'm truly amazed at the level of involvement that the Student Advisory Committee has reached. I think it raised it's bound to impact LCPS and probably the rest of the state, you know, with you showing and how are you? You're being very effective with what you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Castro. We're the only student advisory council body in the entire state of New Mexico, and only one of two who actually sits up on the dais at board meetings in the entire United States, the other being in Rockville, Maryland. So we're very proud of the opportunity that the superintendent's office and the board has presented to us, and we love what we do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, we're good. Okay. Dr. Ewing, did you have something?
I would just echo one comment, and I know the legal counsel is going to tell me this is not on the agenda. So this is a teacher talking to a student. So first, Cameron, I'm always so proud of you and proud of what you say. And I say to folks, as you're listening to him, he's more eloquent in his speech than I am up here, and so he's a good role model for us. Just talking about guns, we want to make sure that the public understands I never would support and I never believe in any officer using a gun to defuse any situation with a student in a school. So we only talk about guns in schools to protect students and to protect teachers. And so you've heard me say on multiple occasions, so I was raised in the South. I was raised with an awareness of guns, an appreciation of guns, and respect for a weapon. And so you use those weapons for safety and security of students and adults in buildings. And so my fear is there's only two people to shoot in a school building. So it's either students or the workers in the building. And if we ever had an active shooter situation, having an armed officer is what we would rely on to neutralize that shooter. I think as you work with Officer Gregory and he explains more about weapons and what we can do, we'll certainly look at that. The way the policy reads, just so everyone understands, the policy says the superintendent has the authority if I deem that there is a threat to a school, or if I deem that safety is compromised in a school building, to authorize an individual to bring a weapon. We've done that one time. Officer Gregory has his weapon. We required him to go through training to be recertified. He's a former police officer, retired as a lieutenant, and I even asked that he go through a requalification of shooting so that when a bullet comes out, he knows where it's going. When we look at that policy, I can authorize someone, I must give the board 24 hours notice, but then the board has the authority to overrule the superintendent. And we did that on purpose, so there's a system of checks and balances. So we don't want anyone to ever go overboard with those authorizations, and we're being very cautious with those. And at the same time, I think it has to be a process that I believe in working in tandem with the board, and the board has to be where we all are in our thinking process. And our goal is ultimately all of us. We always talk about teaching students, but our first goal is your safety.
Absolutely.
And so as I listen to you, and I will say to the board, and if Ms. Irma is still here, so when I'm in schools and I ask kids, what are the 3 things that we can do to improve your school? The number one thing that they say, regardless of where I go, is they want more security guards in their school. They like having those security guards in the building. So I understand that, I get that, and we will look at that. And I encourage you to have additional dialogue. Get our Director of Public Safety, I see Todd's in the back now, so get Todd to come and have conversations with you and what that actually means. And so, thank you, Madam President.
Okay, thank you so much.
May I have said a few comments, please?
We'll come up to the podium. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to say I really like that term, Organ Mountain Rivalry. I think
Yeah,
that's
I haven't heard that
that's
before.
lovely.
Great, isn't it? And there's actually going to be a traveling trophy with a bell. So the second the clock strikes 000 on the game clock, the students from Centennial hopefully are going to get to run over and claim that trophy. So it'll be
All
fun.
right, now, where are the Onyates? Are they Onyate
Yeah,
students
so they're not here right now.
I think you have some competition for the trophy. So
Ms.
I
Valdespino?
think this is wonderful.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Ewing for allowing me to come back and give a few remarks regarding our security guards. I don't know whether you are aware that many of our security guards are former law enforcement, either through LCPD, the Sheriff's Department, and they're also former COs from the prisons. So they already have that experience, and some of them also have private security guard experience as well. So they already have that experience. They do have gone through the different levels of training as a security guard that they are certified by New Mexico. I just wanted to make that aware that they are definitely experienced employees already, and they know the responsibilities. They know how to de-escalate situations because they already have been in those positions where they have needed to do that. And so I think I told my story back when I was working at Mayfield High School. We did have an active shooter, and for a long, long time, the bullets were there next to the mirror of the entrance of the nurses' station. The office. They were there for quite some time. It was an Army veteran that de-escalated the situation. After that, the kids called him Rambo Reynolds. Reynolds was his last name, and at that time, Rambo was very popular, so they called him Rambo Reynolds. So the reality is there that we have had active shooters in LCPS. So of course, I am a proponent of more security guards, and I thoroughly support Cameron's remarks, so thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Valdespino. We will move on to Human Resources.
President,
Oh,
can I
did
just
you have
make
something to
a
say?
comment
Yes.
about the changes in the science standards, which I also find appalling. But I have to believe that teachers will always teach the truth, despite any changes like this that might come from the state level. So I just want to reassure you of that.
Yes, sir.
That is what we hope.
Absolutely.
Okay, Human Resources and Dr. Serrano. And thank you for stating your
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. This is the employee report since our last board meeting. In the area of certified, we hired 60 new employees. We had 7 resignations and 4 retirements. And in the area of classified, we've been busy. We hired 56 new employees. We had 17 resignations and no retirements. And I stand for questions.
board members. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Senora Flores, I do have a question. Dr. Serrano, are these retirements after the school started?
Yes, the retirements after this quarter, and a lot of folks already accumulated enough time, and I'm finding out in New Mexico it's per quarters. They've already met the requirements to be able to retire, and some of them are going to retire in December. So we have retirements throughout the year. The majority happen at the end of the school year, but we do have, as we know, retirements throughout the school year.
Okay, and the majority of them are experienced and seasoned teachers, correct?
Yes, and we also have retirements also in the non-teaching areas, as, administration and several departments also as well. We have one that's a teacher that's retiring.
And I guess my question is, are we making any effort to keep some of these teachers, or is there just a reason? Are they just
Some of them have decided that they reached their 75, the age and the years of service of 75, that they want to retire. But some of them are actually very happy with the district and are telling us that in New Mexico, if you sit out a year, they actually want to come back in a year and work for the district. So they're leaving in good terms.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And we would be happy to look at them again. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, board members, there's no more questions or comments. Thank you, Dr. Serrano.
Thank you.
We now move on to finance, and for Ms. Valdez to come up.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent Ewing. The first item is the board financial report, and this is a snapshot in time as of October 3rd. It is for the first quarter. We will be presenting the reconciled actuals that get submitted to PED on a quarterly basis at the November board meeting, but this is just a snapshot in time. In reviewing the report, I did not see anything unexpected or remarkable, but I stand for questions.
And board members, you reviewed this in your packet. Are there any questions for Ms. Valdez? Okay.
Thank you. The next item is the September Finance Advisory Committee meeting minutes, and those were approved at the finance meeting on this past Thursday, and I stand for question on those minutes.
And we saw those also. Any questions or comments? So thank you for your report. We
Thank you.
appreciate you, and we will miss you.
Thank you.
And that takes us on to operations and Mr. Jaques.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. So my first item that I bring to you is there are 3 documents, and this afternoon we're asking, or this evening we're asking for your approval, and we have 3 portables. One at Conley, one at Desert Hills, and one at Hillrise, and they belong to the Public School Facility Authority. They're in our possession currently, and so there's no cost to house those portables. They're all being used as AES resource classrooms / resource centers at those 3 schools. And so this is a 10-year agreement or 10-year term with them. So at any time, if they needed portables and we needed to work kind of with them, they could always come back to us and ask for them, and vice versa. And if there were schools in need, that we could work through them with that. So the reason we do have other portables, they're regular, normal portables, nothing extraordinary, no bathrooms or anything with them. But there is a cost to move them. So if we send them out, we're responsible for that cost, and it can run anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000 just to move those portables. So at this time, we're asking for your approval of these 3 contracts with PSFA to house these portables in our district and continue to use them.
Does anyone have any questions in this regard? We saw the agreements. I was wondering why there was only 3, but it's because they belong to PSA.
They belong, yes, ma'am.
Okay, not the others.
Not the others, yes, ma'am.
All right, so then I will entertain a motion to approve the Public Schools Facility Authority portable building use agreements with LCPS, or Las Cruces Public Schools.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Dahlman first and Mr. Castro second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the motion passes.
Awesome, thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, our next item under operations is the approval of a contract between Las Cruces Public Schools Nutrition Services and Mission Lutheran Church, and Nancy Cathy is going to present that at this time.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. I'm here to request your approval of a contract with Mission Lutheran School. They had approached us about getting meals, as we provide that service to many preschools and programs around the city. So it's the same contract we use with everybody else, and so I'm here to request that approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments? And how many schools do we serve that are not in our that are not part of the district?
We serve a couple different programs at NMSU, Gem Magic, the Head Start program on Lester Street. And I think that's it right now.
Okay.
On the Catholic schools.
And the Catholic schools. Okay, thank you. I will then entertain a motion to approve the school year 2017-2018 contract between Las Cruces Public School Nutrition Service and Lutheran Mission Church Preschool for Meals.
So, I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Castro first and Mr. Jaramillo second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and so it passes. Thank you.
All righty, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. So our next item under operations is approval of the fiscal year 2018 Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education Grant, most commonly known as our SNAP Ed grant. And with that, Nancy's going to talk a little bit about just some facts and figures with that, and then we'll stand for questions.
So he calls it our SNAP Ed grant. In my office, they all call it the Barbara Burger grant because she's written it for the last 13 years and has continued to be the guiding light in that program. But so for 13 years, we've applied for it and have received funding. They really like everything that we do. We're very cheap for the amount of work that we do compared to other programs, and so they've always been extremely supportive of us. So this year, our grant is $285,799, and so this would be used to continue to support the monthly tasting lessons that occur at the elementary schools. It has supported lots of promotional activities we've done with students, competitions, our HEAL grants that we have, the videos that supported that. Lots of school gardens, and if you see the picture up there, is that's a school garden at, I believe it's at Conley. It's been around a while, but it's one of our first ones that we supported, and so we're going to continue to support those. We also support the activity party kits. I don't know if you guys are aware of those, but we buy a bunch of fun activity things for kids to do, and they go outside and have an activity party instead of birthday parties, and it really supports them getting out and having fun and celebrating being outside together. And then the newest thing that we're getting ready to do is hydroponic gardens, and we are working with the Extension Master Gardeners. They approached us to do that, and so Picacho, Vista, Zia, Lynn, and Sierra have all chosen to participate in that, and Bobby Stout's welder just finished the frames to hold the lights up, and I think we're just about ready to get going, so we're really excited about that new additional program.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting, I like that. I will entertain a motion to approve fiscal year 2018 Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education Grant.
No questions?
I was going to do it when we're supposed to in the
Oh,
discussion
okay.
part.
Okay, because the previous
I'm
ones.
throwing you for a loop.
Okay,
I know.
okay.
My husband always says, why don't you ever have discussion after the first and second? So I was trying to correct it. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Discussion?
Thank you. I think this is a wonderful program, but I on page 256 in the packet, which is page 11 of the document, I was just really confused about all the numbers that were there. And so I'd just like to have a little explanation about that particular page. It's 256 in the packet.
And what page?
And it's page 11. It's the last page. It's the summary
Okay.
of the financial information. And I think the source of my confusion is that the state and the federal government have different fiscal years.
Yes.
And that's what causes all this
That's why
confusion.
we're doing it
Right.
now.
So that's why we're doing this right now, is this is the money that started October 1st. So it actually goes to September 30 of next
Right.
year, but we have to kind of divide it into chunks. And then, so we're trying to use it in the summer and the very beginning of the year to finish out their year, which is really the beginning of our year. And so that's exactly right. It's
Right, so
confusing.
the money we get it's federal money, and so we get the money under the federal fiscal year.
Right.
But we apply the money during our state fiscal year. But can we still see that page? Can we get that up?
And so, Madam President, if I may,
Yes.
just for the board to know, we have the same issue with our federal grants program. I'm looking at Ms. Martinez. So most states have a fiscal year July 1 to June 30th, and that makes it easy for us as school people because that matches our school calendar. The federal government has a fiscal year October 1 through September 30. And so that always causes us confusion. As we start school, we're using the previous year's money in federal programs, and then we receive new funds on October 1st. The biggest component for us is Erlinda and I hold our breath some years because you start a program with federal funds and you hope that it's continued after school has started. You can't say, I'm not going to hire individuals with federal money and wait until October to see if it happens. We start school in August. So this is why we're coming here. We are following the regulation, and Nancy, correct me, but our regulations are we bring this to the board once we receive the final figures. You wouldn't be able to
Correct.
notify the board before because we don't actually know what those federal dollars will be until you receive that awards letter.
That's why we thought we were going to get the awards letter, and it didn't quite come before the work session, so we had to pull it off.
Oh,
It was in that lovely pool of getting all the signatures in Santa Fe during that time, and so.
Okay, so we have the page up now. Is there any?
Well, let's start with the letter O there. So what's that $303,000 there?
Okay, so is your concern why it's different from the total federal funds from above? Is that your question, Mr.
I
Frank?
think I understand that because the 285 is the federal. That's our budget it's at the federal level.
That's starting
Right.
October
The
1st.
303.
So what they did, if the 303 is the fourth quarter from that we just finished from July to September, we had the 71,000. Then the 18,000 is what we didn't spend between October and June that was allocated for those 3 quarters. And then the 214 is the allocation for October to June of this year.
So we have 303,000 available to us for our state fiscal year. No?
Yes.
Okay. And
But
yet
of
our
which
budget
the
is
first quarter's
280.
gone.
Okay.
But the first quarter's gone.
So
of
let me
that.
just make sure the board understands, that also includes carryover funding. So in any federal grant.
Right.
Now, we have a rule, spend federal money before spending local money. But in any federal grant, the worst thing you can do is overspend the grant, because then you have to make it up with local money. So we always look to see that there's a little bit of money left over so we can have carryover funds. And then those carryover funds are going to occur because you might budget whatever we budget for a teacher, an EA, or a food service worker, but then our pay scales are so vast that someone with a PhD versus someone with a first-year bachelor's degree, that when you look at all of that and add it up, it allows for a little flexibility in the funding. So when I look at this, Nancy, help me, but I'm seeing 18,000 in carryover.
Right.
That to you is, and Erlinda,
So that's really what we didn't use during last school year.
Right.
Because we're trying to balance how much time and how much all the supplies and how much all the printing costs to support all of these things. And so it's hard to spend right down to the end.
And we will spend that now, and that'll be the first set of dollars we spend. And then we may have some left over next year. And then let me just remind the public, all of the funds that come to us come in silos. So we can only use them for what they're given to us for. So this particular grant is going to have a list of requirements that's probably a manual of a couple hundred pages, and that's all she can use it for. And so part of the frustration with the executive cabinet is we look at the bank account and we have funds, but all those funds are already encumbered based on what the program is. And you can never move from one category to the next. It's not as if at home that you can put all your money in one checking account and have fun when you see $100 at the end of the month, right? So for us, we have to have separate accounts for every single funding source that comes in. And that has been the work of our wonderful Crystal and her team. I'm looking at Ed back there. That's what they do every day. And
Just one more question.
yes, sir.
Just pull it up a little higher and look at P. So, I mean, I'm looking at state fiscal year 17 is 195,000 and 18 is 303. I mean, that's a $100,000 difference. And is there a short explanation as to why that
So
huge?
the 195 is what we actually ended up spending in 17. The 303 has the carryover plus what we've requested. And every year we've added to this program, so it's always going to be a little bit more.
Okay, and then why is 19 in there?
Because that's the July to September part that's actually funded in the money we got this time.
So complicated.
I know.
So in addition to all of those, we have our physical years as well, yes.
It
Okay,
would
well-
be the mathematician that would.
Yes, he would ask
Focus.
us.
Thank goodness I was a math teacher and didn't have to deal with this kind of stuff. 'Cause
So you are not an accounting major.
definitely not.
That's why we have Crystal's department to help Barbara make sure we're on the right page all the time. And so far, we've never had a financial problem with this grant.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and Mr. Frank, if you are inclined, we can set up an appointment for you to sit with the accountants and let them talk more, or you? No? Okay, so.
He is on the finance
Okay.
committee, right?
Okay, so we just want to make sure that the board is voting on this, and this is a legal document that you are giving approval to. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with all the information you need.
Which is why I brought these things up.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Since there is a motion on the table, and you made a first, and Ms. Dahlman made a second, I think?
Yes.
Yes. So then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so it passes. And please thank Barbara Berger for her continued work on this grant. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Very nice job.
Okay, that takes us on to board items. And the first one is new business, ratification of step increase of $1 for certified employees. And we need a little bit of an explanation, I guess, Mr. Huckes.
Absolutely. Good evening, Madam President, once again, members of the board and Mr. Superintendent. So tonight we're asking for your approval of a $1 step increase for all our certified employees. So a little bit of background information. So traditionally, ratification has meant that the Board of Education is approving a collective bargaining agreement in the overall agreement. So historically, I know just being part of both teams, we've separated things out occasionally where we've approved salary schedules and then we've ratified an agreement. So one of the things is this would be an agreement that's already been negotiated and approved by members of our NEA Las Cruces group. So since we're not bringing the entire collective bargaining agreement before the board tonight, we're only asking the board to approve this $1 step increase.
So instead of a ratification, it's an approval.
Yes, ma'am. So it's an approval, and I apologize for that confusion. We worked closely with our union friends to work through this, and if I may give a little bit of an explanation. So this affects our T&E, or our training and experience, that affects our certified employees. And so what that does is it's a snapshot of a pay period in October that they gather information, and that's our training and our experience. So that's our education and then our year's experience. And they take that and they use that as a multiplier to our state equalization grant. And it's a really big deal financially. And so just to give you an idea, me and Crystal Valdez, we ran some numbers just before the meeting. And so 0.001% or 1,000th TH of a percent has a difference or has a monetary price tag of $178,000. So that little bit of a change affects us $178,850 to our T&E. So if we do not have this in place by October, then we don't get the snapshot, then we wouldn't qualify for any kind of changes to that.
Okay.
And so in working with our team, with NEA, we're coming forward with this approval. So we're not done bargaining, and we're still working through wages and allowances and some issues on the agreement. It's been very pleasant and fun, and we've had several discussions over that, but we agreed that we think this is absolutely important, both teams, so we can get this through and ask for your approval today.
Okay, and I see Mr. Hartman standing behind. Did you want to say something before we
Absolutely. Go ahead, Bruce.
do this?
Yes. I'm glad that was changed to approval.
Yes.
We do have a memorandum of understanding that will allow the board and the association and the district to proceed with this. We need to sign this. I'll read it to you. This memorandum of understanding between the Las Cruces Public Schools and NEA Las Cruces reflects a temporary provision in compensation. Even though the parties are still bargaining final compensation for the 2017-2018 school year, the parties agree that any final compensation agreement will provide that every employee will move on the salary schedule in a manner that reflects at least $1 increase in compensation. The parties agree that a preliminary salary schedule reflecting this increase and movement on the salary schedule steps may be submitted to the Public Education Department with a notation that bargaining for final compensation is not yet complete and is continuing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hartman. So then, do we have any questions? Since that's the way you do.
I just
Okay.
want to clarify this. You said 0.001%?
0001.
2 zeros and a 1. 0.0011. Yes.
So that's an incredibly small number.
And we saw a decrease. We went from in 15, 16, we went from our multiplier went from 1.081 to 1.08 and saw that decrease of that 178,000 overall.
Right.
And it's a pretty powerful multiplier, if I may, because it's multiplied after everything. I mean, it's our unit value, and then it's plus on top of all of our program units. So it's really, it's very powerful.
So it's not percent, it's just 0.001.
Percent.
Oh, percent, so okay. They weren't
And this speaks to
percentages.
Ms. Dahlman's comments earlier, that as we continue to lose experienced teachers, then this multiplier could go down. So it's even more important for us to recognize what experience we have, to keep the people we have, and to encourage them to go get those advanced degrees, which I think we will continue to do. And Mr. Hartman, Madam President, if I may ask,
Yes.
legal counsel was listening to your MOU. Would you mind allowing us to have legal counsel look at that quickly right now? Are you our legal counsel?
Madam President, Mr. Frank, if I may ask Crystal, am I correct in saying that that's a percentage, or is that just an actual number? And I apologize for saying yes.
It's a factor.
It's a factor, okay.
Okay, so now we're in the mathematical world.
Okay, you've lost me now. Okay, I think, do we need to wait for on the MOU, or?
Maybe if we could give it just a second.
Okay.
And while we do, I could just say to the board how proud I am of the bargaining team. Gabe, would you recognize who has been on the bargaining team from our office?
Yes, sir. So from our office, we have Ms. Crystal Valdez, Mr. Roberto Lozano. Dr. Sedano has worked with us, as well as one of his coordinators, Alice Villa Chavez, Dr. Wendy Miller Tomlinson, Mr. Jim Shapakan, principal from Oñate. Am I forgetting anybody, team?
And I think we would say to our friends at NEA and CSEC, if Ms. Irma is still here, I think it's been a very pleasant bargaining process. We thank you so much for your collegiality and your professionalism. And we look forward to continued dialogue. And I will only suggest in the future that we look at beginning bargaining earlier when it comes to money, so that when we're actually putting the budget together and bringing all the dollars in front of the board and the public, that's the time to have conversation with our dollars. And I hope that all can agree we're trying to be as open and transparent as we can. So I just want to say thank you to our leaders, and thank you to the team that engaged in the
Absolutely. And if I may add while they're discussing, so we've moved towards an interest-based bargaining. And so I grew up and bargained both sides with kind of the formal proposal. And in my mentality at points, it was always kind of a win-lose. And it's really cool because our goal was to work to a win-win. Like, how do we really work together to look at those needs and have some honest discussions? And we kind of took the formality down a little bit so we could really ask questions. And I hope my colleagues agree, but I feel like it's been very positive and learning for all of us and listening. So.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hawkes. And Ms. Gallegos?
Yes, Madam President, I had a brief conversation with Mr. Hartman, and really the motion is independent of the language that he presented. So I think the motion can be made independently, and then they'll continue their collective bargaining process. So.
All right, so then we'll go ahead with the vote then. I will entertain a motion to approve the step increase of $1 for certified employees.
I'll move that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Frank and Ms. Dahlman, any discussion, further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so it passes.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to the discussion and approval of board attendance at the New Mexico School Board Association Region 7 meeting. The Region 7 meeting will be Tuesday, October 24th, held in Ruidoso, New Mexico, at the Ruidoso Middle School located at 124 Warrior Drive, and will begin at 5:30 and it will end approximately at 8:30. And I will entertain a motion to approve board members Castro and Frank. Are they the only ones going so far? Mr. Jaramillo, are you going to go?
I was going to make sure that someone was going to attend for us, so I think that if we have
Representation.
I think it would be beneficial that there's no reason for me to be there and cost the district some more money.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure somebody was there, and I have, these two gentlemen will be perfect.
Okay, Ms. Dahlman?
Madam President, I wasn't aware that it was going to be late in the afternoon, starting at 5:30, and I actually have a doctor's appointment at 4:30.
Okay,
So
so
I
then,
will not be able to
yes.
attend.
And I'm leaving the very next day, so it's not good for me to be out late, driving one day and then leaving the next day. It's not for a good transition. So then I will entertain a motion to approve board members Castro and Frank to attend the New Mexico School Board Association Region 7 meeting.
Just one comment.
Oh, yes.
Just
Can we, why don't you make a motion first? Make it first.
I so moved then.
Okay. and you
I'll
will-
second.
Second, okay, now, discussion.
No, it's okay. Ed and I had planned to leave and come back the same day.
Right.
So it won't be that much of a deal.
Okay, that's fine. I just don't be too tired coming back, okay?
So, Madam President, if I may, from our perspective here, do we need to do anything to get you prepared? Do we need to make any arrangements? Do you need a vehicle? Do you need a driver? Mr. Jaquez is a good driver wherever he is. Are you want to drive on your own? Madam President, does the board prefer that we have a member of the administration there? Are you fine if just two board members represent?
If there's an administrator that would like to be there, they're always welcome to go. So, I don't know if anyone's available, but,
Be nice.
yeah.
Okay, so you would like a representative present? Okay, so we will arrange
Okay,
to have someone with you, and then I need to look at staff. We're going to need to cut a PO to pay for the registration fee, so if we'll pay for 2 board members and 1 member of the administration, either myself or one of the lucky executive cabinet members who would like to drive on
to
a
read those.
Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
I do think the registration deadline has expired.
Oh,
We did notify the
That you were
board
going.
that we would like to take this in an open forum discussion. I'm looking at legal counsel. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to do, which is have these discussions in public. And we notified them that we would email them tonight, should the board so decide to go.
okay.
So Maria, are you with me back there? And we're going to send an email tonight?
I'm doing it right now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Wait for the vote.
so then if there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes. Okay, Maria?
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. All right. We move on now to the discussion and approval of Doña Ana County Community Development Department's request for subdivision review of Vista Rancho Phase 1 adjacent to Columbia Elementary School and Vista Middle School. And Mr. Jaquez.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, so before you have some documents, and I apologize, some of the maps are really small to read, but this is a discussion item and possibly seeking approval. We've been asked by Doña Ana County to review a subdivision, a future possible subdivision, Vista Rancho Phase 1, and that is located west of Columbia and Vista Middle School. The first phase, with the information that we have, it looks like it has, Phase 1 has 44 tracts, and it's a 42-acre parcel there. So in discussion with, we've had discussion with just some folks, and I don't know how many phases. I want to say they've just kind of talked about vaguely that there might be 3 phases coming along. It was reviewed by staff. Of course, our Director of Construction, who is amazing, and this is her area of expertise, reviewed it and is suggesting a conditional yes. One of the big questions is will we have a civil engineer looking at drawings? One of our concerns is that drainage that's coming off the East Mesa, coming off the both set of mountain ranges coming in, and during construction as well as after. Will that affect our properties, our schools that are out there? We already have a few issues or have had some issues in the past, but also once we start construction that changes some things up. So we just want to make sure that that's been taken into consideration, and then the final plat is really looking at that drainage and how we're doing that. So with that, I stand for questions.
And, okay, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just may have a comment. Yeah, it'd be good not to have another Columbia, right?
Yes. Anyone over here?
I don't have any.
So, Madam President, if I may.
Yes, I was going to ask a question.
So, Mr. Jaquez, are you asking for a conditional approval? Is that what I heard that word?
So the staff recommendation, so there's three options. There's approved as presented, yes, no, or conditional yes.
So this is from this organization.
So this is to Doñana County, yes, sir. And those are the three options. So our comments were conditional yes, and again, these are just staff recommendations. Conditional yes, considering the civil engineer design drawings ensures that.
So let me confer with legal counsel.
Okay.
So the board has the authority to approve or disapprove an item. Can the board approve an item and say it's a conditional approval?
Yeah, is it an agreement?
And while you're looking at that, Ms. Gallegos, I was going to ask my question. Who is the contractor? Who's the building company? That's my question. And do they have a good track record on working on things like this?
So, Madam President, we've had discussions. So this is the part where we give our input and actually require that we have those engineering. I'm going to tell you, if I may ask Gloria Martinez, she may know.
Okay.
You remember Gloria?
Thurston.
Thurston. So Thurston Homes
Ken
are the
Thurston.
builders.
So, Madam President, members of the board, I'm going to apologize to the board and apologize to the deputy superintendent.
And how big are the tracks while they finish looking at that?
So they look like they were just a little bit under. I mean, they vary in size, but it's a 42.6, I believe, acre phase, and it's 44 lots. So I'm going to guess that they're probably right under an acre-ish. There's also, in our discussions, they talked about some drainage, so they talked about building some other things, parks as well.
Right.
So,
some green spaces perhaps to
yes.
buffer it.
One of the exciting things is looking at the future infrastructure that comes through there. That would actually hopefully upgrade some of our roadways, connecting Doñana Road to,
Right.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Madam President, we are going to recommend to the board that you do go ahead and give the approval for.
Conditional?
The approval for Mr. Jaquez to check the box that says conditional approval.
Okay.
And then that will allow us, we hope, additional flexibility. And then I'm going to recommend to the deputy superintendent, we go ahead and send this on to the legal firm and let Mr. Berenberg do some additional research.
Yes,
So
sir.
we will be doing conditional approval if that's.
Okay, so let me see if I say this right. I will entertain a motion to provide a conditional approval of the Doñana County Community Development Department request for subdivision review of Vista Rancho Phase 1 adjacent to Columbia Elementary School and Vista Middle School. Does that work? Okay,
I so move.
okay,
Second.
okay. Mr. Jaramillo and Ms. Dahlman, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the conditional approval has been granted.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you.
Good job.
Very complicated issues here.
Yes.
Okay, that takes us on to the LCPS board member participation on the Bridge of Southern New Mexico Board. And I do see Miss Tracy Bryant over there hiding behind another staff member. And I was going to turn it over to Dr. Ewing, right?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Madam President, members
So-
of the board.
And here's
Do you
Ms.
want me to
Bryant.
sit?
No, you can come and
You
say.
can engage if you wish in conversation. So I was just going to explain to the board that the Bridge of Southern New Mexico is an organization composed of New Mexico State University, Doñana Community College, the school system, and then other members of the community here. As a school system, we have a permanent seat on that board, and I have been the holder of that seat. I have recommended to the Bridge of Southern New Mexico that I wish to defer my seat to a member of my staff. And so most of the discussions there are discussions related to curricular activities. So we had a meeting with Ms. Erlinda Martinez and Dr. Wendy Miller Tomlinson in the Curriculum Instruction, Teaching, and Learning Department. So my recommendation to the Bridge of Southern New Mexico will be that the Chief Academic Officer take my place there, and that Chief Academic Officer will represent the school district. As we discuss whether board members should participate, it's my recommendation to the board that the board allow the school district to take care of the business of the district on a daily basis and continue your role of supervising the superintendent, approving policy, and then hiring the legal counsel. And so I'm more than willing to recommend that Ms. Martinez serve in my stead. She will need to be approved by the board of directors of the bridge, and she will continue to work with the organization.
So, Ms. Bryant, how does that work?
I thank you very much, Madam President. I have to say this, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. And you do have a fine student.
Yes, we do.
Student on this board. I met this gentleman 2 years ago. Has it been that long? Maybe one and a
Believe
half?
so.
And he blew my socks off then. What have you done to this young man? So thank you,
let him go.
Cameron, for the thank you for the leadership that you bring to the students as well. Yeah, the voice of this district at this time in the bridge is really, really important, and we're very excited to continue that partnership because while we began a conversation with the question, how can we help from the business community, it has evolved into something so much more. And the bridge has really become sort of a community resource and really looking to identify opportunities, funding, partnerships that continue to support student success. You may have seen the joint op-ed in the Las Cruces Sun News on Sunday regarding dual credit classes, which are at risk if we don't get our higher education partners funded adequately. We do not want to see one single student not have access to that because we've seen the power. And I do want to say congratulations to all of you on your Blue Ribbon School, Arrowhead Park Early College High School, and the partnership with Doña Ana Community College and New Mexico State University that has made that happen. So congratulations to you all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bryant, for being here and for speaking, and thank you, Dr. Ewing, for assigning a person to do, Ms. Martinez to move that forward.
Thank you.
If we don't have any other questions on that, we'll move on to board member business. And does anyone have a report today?
I guess I have something
Go
to say.
ahead.
Can I start?
Please.
So I participated in 3 activities that I consider incredibly important in terms of education. The first was I went to a Engage activity about early childhood education, which I think is probably one of the key ways to break the cycle of poverty that exists in our community and in our nation. The second thing that I did was I participated with Mr. Jaramillo in a task force to look into restorative justice, which I think that successful teachers have been employing these methods forever. I think it's really exciting that we're making the attempt to institutionalize these practices, these sound practices, and I think it will have a really big effect on the education of our students here. And the third thing I did was participate in an academic awards assembly at Mayfield, which was really wonderful to see. So that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Frank, and thank you for going to Mayfield. I was going to go, and then I wasn't able to at the last minute, so.
Yeah, Mr. Castro was there too.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. Ms. Dahlman, did you have a?
I do.
Yes, please.
Quite long.
It's okay.
Okay, so I too had the opportunity to attend the early childhood care and education gathering sponsored by the Engage New Mexico. There was a very impressive group of community leaders present. This organization's objective is community outreach to early childhood intervention through preschool initiatives and partnering with several local organizations to collectively input social issues. Engage New Mexico is able to provide many resources and names of organizations that can answer questions regarding early childhood intervention. I was reminded that New Mexico ranks 49th in the country in child well-being. I was also reminded that approximately 80% of the brain development takes place by the end of the child's first year, and 90% develop by age 5. That means that our littlest students when entering kindergarten are already at a disadvantage when enrichment isn't provided. Remember, we parents are their first teachers. And then I also had the opportunity to attend a DAC meeting. Mr. Jaime Calderon asked me to address our first DAC meeting for this school year, held at Zia Middle School on September 28th. It was nice to be back at my last teaching post, but more importantly, it was great to see many parents interested in taking part on school-based decision-making and getting involved in their children's education. Some of the DAC goals are improving communication, dissemination of information, educational topics, and on-site challenges. I encourage parents to attend our DAC meetings. I believe one of the meetings will address prevention of bullying, presented by Mr. Martin Greer. I too attended the Las Cruces High School Academic Awards reception, and I have an interesting story to tell. Last couple of weeks, Mr. Handy was here, and in his report, he said that the school had been knocked down a couple of grades by the state, and he was kind of bummed about that. So during the award ceremony, when there were many students that received awards, and one of the things, as I was walking back to my car, I was in back of a family, and the dad was holding the certificate to his chest, and he said, the little girl said, "Papi, what are you doing?" And he said, "Mija, nobody has ever gotten an award like this in our family." So I know Mr. Handy's not here. I know that probably, I don't know if anyone from the school is here, but you guys are doing great things. So, and then finally, I had the opportunity to attend Trotando Pasos Ajenos and the Young Women's United exhibit at the Cultural Center in downtown. And it was a great pleasure to be there for the opening night. The exhibit was created by Dr. Dulcinea Lara and Dr. Nicolás Natividad. I must also mention the incredible job Daniel Aguilar accomplished by designing and building the exhibit structure. I also must mention that our own Senora Flores read a beautiful and moving opening speech. I do have to add that while she didn't get emotional, my husband and I did. Anyway, if you haven't had a chance to enjoy the exhibit, please go. We actually learned a lot about our area. Thank you.
Good report. Thank you, Ms.
You
Dahlman.
get an A.
Did you have?
I just have a couple of words to say, I guess, nothing formal. But I just want to say that I didn't realize how much, the community and how much things that we all do out in the community. And I, along with many of the other board members, I attended a lot of meetings since our last, the early childhood education, the restorative justice with Mr. Frank. And I just want to say that I agree with you. These are best practices, and I'd love to see these because I think that it's going to be beneficial to all the children involved. I also attended the academic awards at Centennial High School, and I was very proud that my son was a part of that ceremony, and I got to shake his hand and give him his academic award. So I was a proud father that day and school board member. So I also participated in a few walk to school days, which was very, very cool, just to see them go from the park to the school. I recently attended a meeting where I was asked as a school board member what was the biggest misconception of my role as a school board member, and my answer was that we as school board members have direct access to what is, or direct influence onto what is happening in a daily basis, I think. And oftentimes I get a lot of requests to help parents in those daily activities. And what I want to say, and because I see Mr. Calderon here, is I want to say that I don't do much other than direct them to staff here. And Mr. Calderon is, I think he may see my phone call or my thing on there, and like Irma said, he said, "Oh gosh, Ray's calling again." But the reason why I bring this up is because I get a lot of credit, and I feel I didn't do much. I really didn't do anything. And so I want to just say that there are a lot of things that are going on in this district, Mr. Calderon. If you would please just, I want to personally thank you, and I want to personally thank the people that are involved, and it's several different administrations through several different schools. But right now, 100% of the families that I have directed to help, they've all come back and thanked me, and I all I could say is I didn't do much, but I will relay the message. And so I just want to take the time and opportunity to say thank you to not only you, but all the people that you've worked with, because oftentimes when we don't help, we could see children fall through the crack, and that hasn't been the case. And I am so proud to say that that everything is being done to help every family and every child from both sides, in the middle of our city, everywhere around, every school, every level. And so I just want to say, take a chance to say thank you. And if you would please, I've spoke to Mr. Calderon, and I've shared, I get text messages, I get emails, and all sorts of different correspondence, and they are all the same. And so, thank you.
On behalf of all the board members, thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
Because it's important to me to say this. It's not me, and I do receive the phone calls, and I do work with the parents, but it's everybody in our team. All I do is connect with people, and all my colleagues back there, everybody out there, they're the ones that make it happen. I'm just the person receiving it and then coordinating with everybody and trying to do the best that we can. But I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Madam President, if I may just remind the board, he is the director and senior advisor to both the board and the superintendent. And I jokingly tell him, he makes me look so good I don't recognize myself every day. In my 10-month tenure, I have yet to have a parent come from his office to my office.
Wow.
He has taken care of every single situation.
I could not do it without everybody in the office and everywhere. My colleagues are the ones that
So
support.
thank you, Mr. Jaramillo, for recognizing him. He stays in the background a lot, and I don't think and I'm guilty of that too, I don't think we recognize all of our employees as much as we should. I try to say thank you to the executive cabinet. I need to do that more often, and you're reminding me to do that with staff. So, Jaime, a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you, Mr. Jaime.
I know, and I've seen you in action, and it has taken a big group of people. I just don't happen to know their phone numbers, and so it doesn't matter what. So I think if I'm hungry, I'll call you. If it doesn't matter. So
He can handle it.
But I think you had mentioned that somebody had got up in your favorites list on your iPhone, and Jaime, you are now in my favorites.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
But thank you very much. And I get to see their faces, and I get to see, and I get hugs, and I get all this stuff, and all I did is just relay them to the right people, and all across the board has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jaramillo, that's a good one. Did you have something, Mr. Castro?
Madam President, Dr. Ewan, I don't have very much to report except that I was gone on doing quite a bit of travel and vacation, but I'm just amazed at the LCPS level of that we've reached now. I can only say the staff is a dream team. I think the board is a dream team. It's a bummer that we're losing somebody like Crystal, and she brought a lot to the table, including her high level of competence and professionality, and somebody we trusted. It's just made the whole thing a lot more functional, and we hate to see you go. Good luck.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Castro.
And I think, Ms. Dahlman, you asked a good question. I think, what is it, you leave a year and then you can come back? So, I already set my alarm and my timer, Ms. Dahlman.
There you go.
So I'll be, so,
He's
thank you.
counting the minutes and the hours, okay?
You're competing against a grandchild. I can tell you, it's hard to compete against
If
grandchildren.
it's in my phone and the alarm, then it's happening, so I'm gonna put it there. Thank you.
And finally, I have a little bit of stuff to report as well. I was invited to be part of the police chief selection process for Las Cruces, and sat in with many community members going over interview questions. I am passing that responsibility on to Dr. Ewing and Board Member Dahlman to be part of the actual interviews, as I will be in Michigan visiting grandchildren at that time. Thank you to the City of Las Cruces for including the Board of Education. It is a terribly important role for our schools and our restorative justice initiative, and after what Cameron said, we see the importance of policing in our schools. Ms. Dahlman and I attended the Ethnic Studies Task Force, and as did Mr. Jaramillo and Mr. Frank to the Restorative Justice Task Force. So we are following the progress as staff develops these initiatives. I was invited to say a few words, as Ms. Dahlman said, for the opening of the exhibit Trotando
Pasos
Pasos Ajenos, and I forgot to write that down in my report at the Brannigan Cultural Center. I said more than a few words, but the exhibit was amazing in the complexity of information that was offered, some familiar and some less so. I congratulate Dr. Lara, Dr. Natividad, the College of Education, Drs. Dean Pope and Dr. Osanlu, all from NMSU, for sponsoring this eye-opening experience. It is fascinating, and I hope that our students will be able to visit the exhibit, which will be open until January of 2018. I attended one game, Centennial High School versus Mayfield High School, and I congratulate the players who really played with heart that night. I mean, it was going back and forth. It was a really good game. I also saw a lot of cheerleaders, some quite young, filling the stands with spirit. There were little girls out there with the high school cheerleaders, and they were doing a fabulous job. And then I never got to go to the exhibition of the bands, but Centennial High School Band was terrific that evening. The scoreboard looked okay to me too. I checked it out from a distance, okay? That's for our bond advisory committee. I'm always thinking about things as I'm going from place to place. It is a constant joy to see our students excelling, learning, and achieving in so many ways. Congratulations also to Arrowhead Park Early College High School for achieving blue ribbon status. To the staff, the students, and their families, we applaud you. And so that's the end of the reports. Mr. Frank, tomorrow we're going to City Hall. We're going to agenda setting for the joint city school board meeting, okay?
Correct.
Ms. Gonzalez, you'll accompany them?
Yes, so the three of us will meet there, and we meet at the mayor's office, okay?
Okay.
It's on the third floor, or second floor? Okay, at 8:30, that's tomorrow. And then you will also be attending the region, the NMSBA meeting in Ruidoso. We have a special meeting November 7th, and our regular board meeting. Then there's the joint work session with the city. And I think that's about it. So if there are no further comments, I will entertain a motion.
Madam President, if I
Oh,
just
yes,
give one
sir.
shout out.
Yes.
So as I sit up here, I sit with my phone just so staff can keep me apprised of what we're doing. But I just want to say hello to Dr. Sanchez, our Superintendent Emeritus, who has watched every moment of tonight's board meeting and texted me throughout the evening. And
What did he say?
Dr. Sanchez wanted to say how proud he was of the student from the Crossroads program, and to thank the board for allowing the student to come before the board for the great work that he did. So Dr. Sanchez, if you're watching, we thank you, and you are our superintendent emeritus, and for me, you are a constant rock, and I really appreciate you very much.
Tell him I want to hear what he thought about saying the pledge in Spanish, okay?
Dr. Sanchez, or if
Yes.
you're watching, if you'll begin texting, give us your thoughts and any corrections that Dr. Lozano needs on his Spanish.
One.
Oh, the kids did a fabulous job. Well, okay, I will entertain a motion then to adjourn this meeting.
So moves.
Mr. Frank? Ms. Dahlman, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you. No discussion.